Claire Harper sat quietly at the edge of the grand ballroom, a glass of untouched punch in her hand, her fingers curled tightly around the stem as if it were an anchor. She watched couples twirl in elegant circles on the dance floor beneath a chandelier that glittered like stars, each facet catching joy and reflecting it back into the world. Her lilac dress, simple and slightly outdated, clung to her like an apology among a sea of silk and satin. It wasn't her wedding, nor was she anyone particularly important to the bride or groom. She had come as a plus one for a colleague, who had ended up canceling last minute. The invitation, non-transferable, left her with a difficult choice: stay home alone, or step out of her comfort zone. So here she was, surrounded by people laughing, kissing, dancing, people who belonged. And then, she saw him. He was impossible to miss. Even before recognizing his face, the air around him shifted. There was something magnetic in the way he carried himself. Quiet confidence wrapped in tailored grace. His tuxedo fit flawlessly, his shoes gleamed, and yet he didn't seem the least bit concerned with impressing anyone. Nathan Calloway. The name whispered around the room like a reverent prayer. Millionaire. Philanthropist. Widower. A man with the kind of story that filled newspapers and broke hearts. And somehow, he was walking toward her. Claire's pulse quickened. She looked around, surely there had been a mistake. But there was no one else sitting alone in this particular corner of the ballroom. "May I?" he asked, his voice smooth and kind, as he gestured toward the empty chair beside her. She blinked. Sure." He sat, and for a moment, silence fell between them like a shared secret. She could smell his cologne, clean, earthy, comforting. "You look like you're trying very hard not to be noticed," he said, his smile gentle. Claire laughed nervously. "That obvious?" "Only to someone who's done the same," he replied. She turned to him, truly seeing him now. There was a quiet sadness in his eyes that didn't show in his smile. Grief had carved lines on his face, but not bitterness. He looked like a man who had loved deeply, and lost just as deeply. "I didn't really plan on being here," she confessed. "But I didn't have the heart to waste the RSVP. Sometimes life leads us to unexpected places," Nathan said thoughtfully. "And sometimes, that's where the most beautiful things begin." She blushed at his words, unsure what to say. No man had ever spoken to her like this, certainly not someone like him. "Would you like to dance?" he asked, rising to his feet and extending his hand. Claire's first instinct was to decline. She wasn't a dancer. She wasn't glamorous. She wasn't the kind of woman men invited to dance at opulent weddings. But something in the way he looked at her, patient, inviting, human, made her hand rise as if on its own. She placed her palm in his. The world around her fell away. On the dance floor, they moved slowly. The music was soft, the lighting low, and she felt as if she were floating. She expected judgment from the crowd, but instead, people watched with quiet curiosity. Some smiled. A few whispered. But Nathan seemed to see only her. "Why me?" she asked softly, afraid to break the spell. "Because you looked like you needed to be reminded," he said, "that you matter. That you belong." A lump formed in her throat. She looked away, blinking back tears. He didn't press. He simply held her closer, allowing her silence. Later that night, after the wedding cake was cut and the last dance was announced, Nathan walked her to the doors of the ballroom. "Thank you," she said. "I don't think I've felt this, seen in a very long time." "You're welcome," he said. Then, without hesitation, he added, "I'd like to see you again. Outside of a wedding. If you'd be open to it." Claire's heart flipped. "You would?" "Very much." Over the weeks that followed, something extraordinary began. They met for coffee, then walks in the park. He visited her bookstore, her little corner of the world tucked into a side street no one famous had ever heard of. She introduced him to second-hand novels and homemade chai. He introduced her to hidden jazz bars and quiet ocean views. But more than the places, it was how they saw each other. Nathan saw past Claire's worn sweaters and shy smile. He saw a woman who had spent her life caring for her ailing mother, putting dreams on hold, enduring more than anyone realized. A woman who listened with her whole heart. Claire saw past Nathan's wealth and name. She saw a man still grieving, still trying to build something good from the ashes of his pain. A man who longed not to impress, but to connect. Their bond deepened, not with grand gestures, but with little things, a note slipped between book pages, a hand held in silence, a shared laugh over spilled coffee. And yet, one evening changed everything. It was their 3-month anniversary. Claire had prepared a quiet dinner at her small apartment. Candles, music, the scent of garlic and rosemary in the air. Nathan arrived with a bouquet of wildflowers and a nervous energy she hadn't seen before. "I need to tell you something," he said as they sat down. She looked up, heart suddenly tight. "I've been offered a partnership in a massive international venture," he said. "It's based in Geneva. If I take it, I'd have to relocate." Claire smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "That's incredible, Nathan. You deserve that." He reached across the table, taking her hand. "But I don't want to go without you." She froze. "I know it's fast," he said. "But Claire, you've reminded me of the beauty in simplicity, in meaning. You brought me back to life. I can build skyscrapers, fund startups, fly across the world, but none of it means anything if I don't have someone to come home to." Tears filled her eyes. "Are you asking me to move with you?" she whispered. "I'm asking you to choose us. Whatever that looks like. I'll wait. I'll adjust. But I want you in my future." It wasn't an easy decision. Claire had responsibilities. Her mother had passed only a year ago. Her bookstore was struggling. Her roots ran deep in this little town. But Nathan's offer wasn't one of escape, it was a door. And for the first time in years, she stepped through it. 1 year later, Claire stood in a sunlit room in Geneva. The bookstore Nathan had helped her open, a cozy little space filled with stories in every language, buzzed with life. Children sat in reading circles. Travelers lingered over coffee. And in the back, Nathan watched her with pride in his eyes. Their love wasn't a whirlwind, it was a rising tide. Gentle. Constant. Unshakable. At their wedding, a small ceremony under the Alps, Nathan made a toast that brought everyone to tears. "I found her sitting alone," he said, voice thick with emotion. "But what I didn't realize, was that I was the one who had been waiting. She taught me that healing doesn't always come from grand moments, but from quiet ones, from being seen, known, and loved." Claire smiled, her heart full. And as they danced beneath the stars, she thought back to that first wedding, the one where she had sat alone, invisible. She had walked in feeling like no one would notice her. And walked out having changed someone's life.